Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Amplify podcast. It has been a long time since we've done one of these, but it's great to be here with you. I'm Austin Slater, and this is my friend Andi Keeley. Andi, thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me. This has been a long time coming.
It has.
We've been talking about it for a long time.
We've been talking about it for way too long, so it's great to finally be here. And really, I'm here to you're here for me to ask you questions, which is a fun thing because I don't have to think of the answers. And we're here to talk a little bit about next generation ministry, specifically here at Friendship, but also just the next generation of Christians, of people of faith. So could you start telling us a little bit about your own personal story and how you ended up here at Friendship before we get into the more wide-ranging topics?
For sure. I'm trying to keep it concise because it's I could talk for a long time about it. But for context, I was raised Roman Catholic from birth until about 18 or 19 years old, super heavily involved in my church and part of youth group, a bunch of different ministries. And then I always joke that I married a Protestant. It all went downhill from there.
We're out to get you. What can I say?
I know. So met my husband Noah when we were in high school and we started dating. And we got married in the Catholic Church, but right around the same time that we were getting married in the Catholic Church was right about when I call it detangling my faith. I heard someone use that phrase and I just really liked it.
That's a good one, yeah.
Because deconstructing your faith, people talk about a lot. And I feel like it's tearing it all down to the ground level. And then you either are there and you just don't have faith anymore, or you have to rebuild everything. And for me, it was more just fine-tooth comb what I was taught versus what it says in the Bible. And Noah was really helpful with that. He is, one of my favorite things about him is he's just very introspective and analytical and wise. And so he just asks questions out of curiosity, oh, well, where did they get this from in the Bible? And unfortunately, I was well, I don't know. I had no apologetics. But we would sit through and kind of talk those things through together. Mm-hmm. So long story short, we were without a home church for about 6 years. We lived on the east side of the state for a while I was in college. We tried many different churches, Catholic churches, Methodist churches, tons of different denominations, but we just couldn't really find one that stuck. And I think for me personally, I realized I don't even know what I'm looking for in a church or what the values are that I need or anything like that. So we kind of paused our search for a church, and really I was on more of a personal journey of who is God? What does the Bible say about religion and faith, and what's my personal identity with Christ? And we were in that spot for a long time. And then 2 years ago, we bought a house back in West Michigan, and we're starting the church search again because we really wanted community at this point. We had been in our own faith journey for so long. We really wanted other people to talk to. And so we tried out a church for a while. We went to several services and it was fine, but it just wasn't right. And then I ended up seeing a random Facebook post from Chick-fil-A about the Friendship Youth Group bringing cows to the Chick-fil-A. And I thought, well, this place looks fun. What is this youth group? And so I Googled Friendship Church and listened to a couple sermons online, listened to a couple podcasts, and then we decided to try it out and we're hooked. Mm-hmm. And it was just very quick from there. We've been here.
I was going to say, we kind of got our claws in you immediately.
Yeah. but I think that was also we were so starved for community for so long that once we were here, I was just all right, we're going in, we're diving in deep. And so, yeah, we started coming the first weekend of December last year. By January, we were already in the music ministry team. And April, we were presenting in front of council about the next generation, which we very spontaneously became part of the leadership team for. So, yeah, and now I'm on the podcast. So I just wow, what a whirlwind. It hasn't even been a year yet.
Well, and we're so glad you're here because, again, you guys have come in with an enthusiasm and a passion that we really love and appreciate and is needed. And especially in this next generation stuff, which is really what we're here to talk about. So when we say next generation, both in friendship terms specifically, but also just writ large, what is this next generation? What are they like?
Yeah. So from a friendship specific viewpoint, the council, I think it was like last November or something, was really concerned about like the 18 to 35-year-old population in the church and how to serve them and the lower numbers of parishioners. And so that was what the Next Gen team kind of started from, was researching like how many people do we have in the church? What are the unique needs of this population of people? And so our ministry here at Friendship is more of like an adult ministry for, we say like the 18 to 35-ish, because like we're not asking your age. Who knows? We also want like the 17-year-olds who are going to graduate from high school. We want, if you have a spouse who's older than 35, we don't care. But it's that 18 to 35-year-old group from a larger perspective, like next generation of Christians is just like Gen Z millennials who are now the ones in charge of their own faith life. They're not relying on parents anymore to coordinate what they're doing and being involved in. They're people who probably moved away from where they grew up and are starting to have those questions about what their personal beliefs are. And in that pool of 18 to 35, it's so many different demographics of like college student, full-time employee, single, dating, married with kids. So
It's pretty wide ranging.
Yeah, and like a lot of different like scheduling conflicts and like it's a hard group to service because it can be such a wide range, but it's this age group of people who are making some of the biggest decisions of their life. And if they don't have a strong community that's helping them through all those different stages and decisions, it can be a really lonely, confusing place to be.
Yeah, absolutely. So what are then some trends with this next generation about how they interact with faith? Because it's markedly different than previous generations, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, I mean, in general, that 18 to 35 is really like, well, especially 18 to 25, really that questioning. And that's been a standard in generations. I remember my dad saying he went to college and he was like, what do I believe in? Like,
Right, yeah.
you get away from your family or your home community and you just start to question what you were taught growing up and how that translates to what you believe. But we also, in the Next Gen Ministry team, there was a large like research process. Noah and I kind of joined that like towards the end, like halfway through. And they had a lot of conversations with local pastors of different churches, reading online articles, and then looking at research, like research projects that were done. So there was one by a company called Barna, but it looked at Gen Z, so like 18 to 25-year-olds in the U.S., and it was like done in 2023, I think. So it was post-COVID, which was interesting. And it talked about how the population of Gen Z viewed Jesus in a positive light. I wrote down some of the things so I wouldn't forget. They knew that he offered hope and that he was trustworthy, but that in the research didn't always translate to a Christian identity or to attending a church.
Gotcha.
And I thought it was really interesting that approximately 47% of Gen Z had not attended a church in the last 6 months.
Wow.
So there's a lot of people who believe in Jesus, but they're not going to church. And it looked at a lot of technology, too, for this day and age. And Gen Z was quick to admit, like, they overconsume technology. It said 85% acknowledged excessive internet use.
Yep, I would definitely count myself among that portion of 85%.
Yeah, I've been, like, scaling back a lot this year. And then 54% agreed, like, in-person relationships held more value than relationships via technology. But then on the other end of that, 70% said that they built community through the internet.
Right.
So, and through these virtual platforms. So it's this like juxtaposition of I'm on the internet too much, but also how do I make community if I'm like not getting connected with people? And one article said like, if we don't have real people who really care about us, it's much more convenient to just sit at home and watch a sermon on my couch than to go in person. And I think too, it's easier, especially if you like moved away, to like explore churches online. It feels like a lot less scary. You can like see what's the structure, what's the music like. Like I did that. I watched some before I went in person. And then as far as like their views on faith, Gen Z really likes evangelism, but they view it more through actions than words. And so evangelism to them looked more like, it said living out one's faith authentically, which I feel like authentic is such a big word for this generation.
Yeah. For sure.
But like inviting other people to church, sharing personal faith stories, praying with other people, like that's what they viewed as evangelism. And they're really open to discussing spiritual matters, and especially like with respect and genuine interest. I think this generation really values transparency and being able to ask questions and try to understand the religion and the church and like how things work.
Mm-hmm. And so with regards to like how things work and like church and the structures of church, how does Gen Z treat church institutions, whether it's the Catholic Church or any number of the 8 bajillion Protestant ones? Or
Yeah, I know. There's so many denominations now. I think that overall, Gen Z has a really big mistrust of organized religion. And like the whole next generation in particular, like so many people have just had negative experiences with organized religion or institutions, either with like shunning, shaming, hypocrisy. Like they just don't feel like either what people are saying is really being portrayed in their actions, or they don't understand why or how the values of the institution line up with the actions.
That kind of goes to that authenticity piece.
Yeah, and like that like clear understanding of why is this happening and why do you believe what you believe. I think that's another thing too, is like there's so many layers of like leadership and doctrine, and like, I mean, from the Roman Catholic perspective, like there's the Vatican and like how that all transpires into like the politics of the churches here in America. And so there's a lot of just like wanting to understand how does this all work and how is it all connected and how were things decided and why are we valuing and putting more importance on certain things versus others. So there's a lot of like questions and wanting clarity from the next gen.
Yeah. So then what gives you hope for this next generation? Because as we're, trying to grow the next generation both here and outside of these specific walls, it's good to have something like to look forward to that we can grasp on that's like, this is something that Gen Z really wants with faith.
Yeah, I mean, I think Gen Z really values the community. They want people that understand them. I think this generation, even just with like the world view and culture, values a lot of like empathy, understanding, inclusivity, like all are welcome at the table. And I think there's a lot of hope in that it'll turn away more from like the shunning and shaming and more towards our doors are open. Everyone can come learn about who Jesus is and come no matter what your backstory is. We don't care. I think there's a lot of hope in that. I think there's a lot of hope in the wanting to have conversations and wanting to ask questions. And I think like hopefully that happens more in person than it does online, because sometimes the online conversations and questions about differing opinions doesn't go so well and doesn't have as much empathy. But I think there's a lot of hope in just like the core values of this generation, and the fact that they aren't comfortable with how the church has been shows that they want it to change. And if we can service this group of people and provide opportunities to like uplift them and come together, hopefully that'll end up changing the future generations of how our churches run.
Yeah, I think I remember seeing that there is a massive openness to faith and matters of faith, which is so encouraging. And then again, we've just got to figure out how do we move past the ways that we've always done things, these institutions that, again, like we were saying, Gen Z doesn't seem to trust. How can we move past that roadblock and still bring them in to the fold? Which really gets to my next question then. If you're part of this group, either Gen Z or younger millennial, here at Friendship, how can they get connected? What would some next steps for them be?
So right now at Friendship, we have kind of some small groups established with some leaders. We kind of think of it as like a care group. So you have some leaders to check in with who will put on small group events. And then we try to have like the whole 18 to 35-year-old groups together a couple times. So right now, our next event is a small group event on Sunday after service. It's a pastor Q&A. So we've had some people submitting some anonymous questions, so either like get to know you, or we had some really interesting like faith questions or how the church works with like professing your faith or getting married or whatever. There's a lot of great questions and the pastors are really excited. So we will be in the council room at the church after service, and we'll have some snacks and drinks, and we'll get to kind of have a casual conversation with our pastors, and they can answer any questions that come up during conversation too. They just get a little bit more grace to say, I don't know the answer to that one yet. But so that's one way. We definitely in the new year plan to do some more whole group events, which the small group event, it's open to anyone who has ever been interested or maybe is just hearing for the first time about Next Gen. We don't care, show up. We would love to have them. But yeah, that is a way at Friendship that they can start to get involved.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on this podcast, Andi. Looking forward to having you on again in some other ways, maybe.
Yeah.
For those of you who are listening and you want to get connected to Andi, to our Next Generation ministry here at Friendship, feel free to reach out to me at my email, aslater@friendshipcrc.org. I'll pass along any questions or comments you have to her. Andi, thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited.